Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here. And as we see massive inflation, as we see the collapse of the supply chain, we have some really interesting news that could shake up the entire financial world as we find out about Bitcoin. Today, Bitcoin is now approved for an ETF on the NASDAQ. Of course, this has led to massive price fluctuation and a huge amount of money flooding into Bitcoin. But there is more to this story than just that. And there's an underlying reason why this is happening right now. I think it's really important. And it also has a lot to do with your individual basic freedom. So we are going to get into that and more today. But first, make sure to check out the links below. GoGetFunding.com, Patreon, subscribe, star Bitcoin, our Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you can donate in. We really, truly appreciate anything you guys can do to help keep us alive, as well as check out our affiliates with My Patron Supply at whamsurvival.com. Get your long-term 25-year shelf life storable food there as we face an imminent collapse by control of the supply chain, which we will go into further in this video as well, because this has a lot to do with today's news and what we are dealing with down the line, and it's extraordinarily important. And also make sure to check out our affiliate with rncstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, your source for Laetrile online, made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. Get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. Helps keep you alive and keeps us alive at the same time. Make sure to find the book Controlled Demolition of the American Empire by Jeff Berwick and Charlie Robinson over at dollarvigilante.com/book. And of course, make sure to check out the dollarvigilante.com as well while you're at it for your source for news on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and of course, just freedom news in general. So anyway, let's get into this incredibly important news today. Bitcoin has been approved for an ETF. Now, in 2017, this is what the bull market was waiting on. And when it didn't come, well, what we saw was a major collapse in the price of Bitcoin. And a lot of it was by manipulation. I think this is an incredibly important story for many reasons, because it really does tell us where we are at in the creation of really a new civilization. We are witnessing the creation of a new civilization. You see the prices here at coingecko.com, which I find really interesting. And with this, we are also seeing a move into gold as well, a massive move into gold as of recent. And by the way, when gold was approved for a major ETF in 2007, it went up, I believe, 3 to 4x in the year or so after the approval. So that makes a big difference. And why is this happening, you might ask? Well, Zero Hedge here. It says empty Christmas stockings. Don't blame COVID, blame California. Well, blame the government in general. Blame the adamant push towards the destruction of the supply chain. As the article says here, the conventional wisdom of from the left is that COVID is a reason that shipping containers are in the waters off California with no stevedores or truckers available to take care of them. The implication, of course, is that if people would stop being selfish and take the vaccine, the whole world would, or the whole problem would magically vanish. That's nonsense. As a couple of astute articles explain, the problem is that California has passed 2 laws, one for climate change and the other as a sop to the unions that destroyed much of California trucking industry. Add-in woes unique to the industry and COVID payments that discourage people from working, and voila, empty Christmas stockings. This is a really important point, and I won't go into this whole article here, but this is an important point because what's happening right now is they are demolitioning, is that even a word, the entire supply chain. As we face unbelievably crippling inflation, we see them, well, people are getting paid more to stay at home, so that it destroys a bunch of employment. And at the same time as that, people are getting fired in massive numbers, including nurses and doctors and firemen, etc. And why? Because they won't be injected with government juice or poison, and they are self-determined. They are standing up for the bodily autonomy. Now, with that said, what that does is the military is moving in and replacing the nurses in the hospitals, and they've declared martial law in a lot of places without any news coverage really at all. A lot of military are stepping down. What that is going to do is it's going to morph into a split civilization, the technocratic, cashless society, and of course, the new civilization of opposition. Now, it's not really a concerted ideology. It's more just bold opposition, which is interesting and can be used to create eventually a civilization of individual consent, though unfortunately people love to be led. Now, in comes cryptocurrency, and it's just a way to mitigate around this issue to some degree. Now, I know you'll say, well, wait, isn't the problem the cashless society? Yes, and no. It depends on what side of the cashless system you're on, because there's one side that is technocratic and controls everyone to the death with social credit, and the other one that's decentralized and allows you to get around the social credit, which we'll go into more in a second. But you see here, UK's Chicken King warns the era of cheap food is over. Well, absolutely. They are massacring hundreds of thousands of pigs right now because they cannot meet quotas. They cannot get it to shelves. The inflation is skyrocketing, and they're seeing 25 to 30% rises in the price of beef in many places. So what we're seeing is the controlled destruction of the food supply chain. We have the excuse of climate change to bring in climate lockdowns. We have vaccine passports to split families, and we have, well, basically the control of the masses via consent, because, you know, it's easier to do that than by conquest. As we see this inflation get worse, we see roundups of people into literal camps in places like Australia. They're building them in Canada. They're building them in Britain. Well, they already have them in Britain. And they're putting people in actual quarantine camps. They have established new emergency planning procedures in Saskatchewan, Canada. The Emergency Planning Act has been put into place and actually pushed forward and signed by the minister, which allows them to take you from your home, take your children away, put you in prison, do whatever they want, take all of your assets, do whatever they want. This is why this is an important story for me today. And I've mentioned this before. Your credit score should be based on your web history, IMF says. Well, that is a social credit system. It's much more than just a vaccine or a mask. It is complete compliance, which is why this goes outside of just Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just a starting phase of this, and it pushes people towards cryptocurrencies. But if you want to get around the technocratic world order, the best thing to do is get into privacy coins. So, you know, I've talked a lot about PirateChain, which is honestly, I think it's just sitting there waiting in the grass to explode, and it's going to be absolutely huge when it does happen. PirateChain is a privacy coin that, while controversial to some, I think most of the claims, the negative claims about it, have been thoroughly debunked. And, you know, there's always going to be politics in crypto, but I think PirateChain is an absolutely awesome currency and has an amazing community behind it. The whole idea is to get around the government. Epic Cash is another privacy coin that is absolutely incredible and shows huge potential, and only has, like, I think it's under a $10 million market, well, $10.2 million market cap right now. So not only is it great for utility, but it's extremely, extremely low market capitalization, which I think gives it just a reason to be a sitting giant that we're not really aware of, sleeping giant rather. I'm tired today. We have Wownero, which is another great privacy coin. And we have, of course, the classic Monero. And every time we see massive, crazy provisions come in that take away people's privacy, we see these guys jump. Now, again, as we see Bitcoin skyrocket due to this recent news, and I'm not a fan of ETFs, I'm not a fan of any of that kind of crap. However, it just brings more people to Bitcoin, which means that brings more people to other possible solutions such as Monero and PirateChain. And you have to remember, with El Salvador taking upon Bitcoin, what does that do? Well, I think it does something pretty amazing. As we've been talking, it bounced between 61,000, by the way. And by the time this video is, I was probably going to be at like 62. But point is, El Salvador has flipped off the IMF. The IMF has been coming after El Salvador for years, and Venezuela and many other places. And with inflation and everything else, the poverty that they're witnessing there, the intervention from other countries, and their own wrongdoing, of course. When the IMF said that Bitcoin was a bad idea for El Salvador snatched it up and bought a ton of it. And then the IMF tried to crash the price, and El Salvador bought a bunch up low. And then China tried to crash the price, saying they're going to ban it for like the 8th time. And people bought it up low, and it was barely a tick on the chart. In fact, if I load this chart here and zoom it out, we can actually see the El Salvador announcement, and boom, IMF crashes it. So it's bought back up. And China, I think it was somewhere, yeah, it was right around here, I believe. China crashed it again. And it was just a little tick on the chart. Boom, 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 all the way up. And I'm sure there's going to be some more news by the establishment to try and crush it soon and drop the price a little bit. But so be it. I still stick by my $100,000 by the end of the year prediction. So I'm really excited about where this is going, and where PirateChain's going, Epic Cash is going, Wownero's going, and of course where Monero is going. And I think it's incredibly important for other people to stop sitting on their hands. This isn't about making money, though that's part of it. It's more about being a hedge against inflation. And if you want to just buy gold or silver, of course, that is very important to do as well. The point is to get off the grid. And yes, you can be off the grid while using privacy coins. This is important to understand. This is a revolution that we're witnessing as the military backs off. Many of the military who refuse a vaccine are getting court-martialed, as we see police step down because they won't want the vaccine and don't want to enforce it. Many of them anyway. As we see nurses and doctors get fired, as we see firemen get fired, we have an opportunity right now. We have an opportunity to create a new civilization. And this, what we're seeing right now, this represents a little bit of what that new civilization looks like. And we'll do good taking advantage of this opportunity. We are being put on a social credit system that we are going to get slaughtered on this system if we're on that system and if we comply. Of course, as I always say, the most important thing to do is to live by example, live freely, always. Reject the state, decentralize everything, get private, get your storeable food, be healthy, get your bullets, and get out of the big cities, because we are only just witnessing the beginning, and just wait until what we see in the winter. It'll shock the most strong-willed people out there. So anyway, I appreciate everyone watching today. I think this is really important to get into, and I'll get into it more as I always kind of allude to it, you know, the privacy coins, especially because it's so important. But we'll get back to that and more in another video. Make sure to check the links below. Go Get Funding, Patreon, Subscribestar. We have our PayPal address, we have our Bitcoin address, and we have our Cointree address, where you can donate in Monero and PirateChain, or Bitcoin Cash, or Litecoin, or Dash, or many other cryptocurrencies at that link at Cointree. Link below. Of course, in the description, we also have whamsurvival.com, where you can get your long-term storable foods. And of course, we have rncstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, where you can get your Laetrile, amygdalin, vitamin B17, and apricot seeds. You should all go and check out the dollarvigilante.com for newsletters and articles on all of the issues when it comes to finance and COVID, etc. It's very important, and we appreciate, of course, our affiliates. And of course, go to dollarvigilante.com/book to get Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, a book that is very reminiscent of what we're witnessing today. And of course, building 7 is on there collapsing. So, I mean, it's a great representation of exactly what we are witnessing right now. It is a controlled demolition. And some people think, oh, well, look, it's good. Everyone's standing up and they're doing it. That's good. Fine. But they're well prepared for all of that. And they are utilizing that to get the people that still have cognitive dissonance, but are awake enough to not get the vaccine, to steer them in certain directions. And it's incredibly important that we reject that. Of course, we have our Teespring store. We are on Telegram, World Alternative Media, as well as our Telegram channel, World Alternative Media Announcements. We have our newsletter at www.iamband.com. And of course, we are on BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. We're on the Dollar Vigilante's video site at World Alternative Media. And of course, we are on float.app, flote.app, as well as Hive and Steemit at Josh Sigurdson. You can find us on the bad guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, as well as Twitter, World Alt Media. And we really appreciate everyone joining us today. Check those links below. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.